Ah, not me. Huzzah! Welcome to the land of live streaming. John Hess with you today. It is 3:05 on a Sunday. I am prepping for the class that I am about to teach this coming week. I start on Wednesday, but I want to get the class sort of at least the paper. I think tomorrow morning I'll release. I'll transfer. I'm transferring everything over now, and tomorrow morning I will open it up to the class. I do have a question. Unfortunately, they did put in, like, there are only 22 seats in the class, but they enrolled 30 people. So I need to figure that out with the administration. I'm looking up here because I'm trying to do my live stream stats up here and my social. I can just do both. I'm gonna put it down here because it's gonna looks awfully weird to look away all the way up there for the stream. Maybe I'll put it on that side, and then I'll do that. That works better, I think. So yeah, I am working on that. I just wrapped up. I got a little cut on my arm there. I just wrapped up writing my my PowerPoint for depth of field. I know I talked about depth of field maybe being a video that I do with Filmmaker IQ video, and having gone through another depth of field, like part of me, when I got to the lens equivalent thing, I just my eyes started rolling over, and I just don't want to talk about depth of field and lens equivalents. I've just been through that ringer so long, so many times, that I'm just really tired of that subject. I don't want to talk about lens equivalents. I don't know. Maybe depth of field will not. But I mean, the cool thing is I did discover a new way to describe depth of field, and I can share it with you online. And you guys can tell me what you guys think. By the way, anybody here? I haven't seen any comments coming across here. So say hi in the chat, and I'll show you what my depth of field chart looks like. So my depth of field chart here, I can just pull. I guess I pull on my PowerPoint here. Basically, here's the PowerPoint that I'm going to be using. Let's see. Can I do this? Yeah, okay, so. Oops. I am pulling up my depth of field chart here. vMix, okay, cool. So I can see it over here. Alright, so going to my depth of field chart, you should be able to hear me. So I'm looking at, let me go back up a couple shots on this one. So talking about aperture, but talking about like object distance. So if you take the lens equation and you graph it, and you'll see that you'll get this curve here, right? And as the object gets further and further away to infinity, the image distance gets closer and closer to the focal length. And as the object distance gets closer to the focal length value, the distance for the image gets further and further away. So in here, you can see how it slopes, right? And the lower the slope means the deeper the depth of field is. I know it's depth of focus, but we're going to call this depth of field here. So this is kind of a way to visualize how depth of field works as far as distance. Now, when you multiply, here I'm showing you kind of a couple different things with depth of field here. I realize this, and there's hyperfocal distance, but you can kind of do it with like multiple focal lengths. And here you can see that the longer focal length is the purple line up here, is it curves quicker, curves a little more easily than the short focal length. This is the 25 millimeter, and up here the purple line is 100 millimeter. So for a given distance, let's say like 200 millimeters here, the depth of field is very, 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 very deep because there's not much difference between here and here. There's very little like distance, whereas over here in the 100 millimeter there's a humongous difference. between the distance where this is in focus and this is in focus. It's a huge distance versus here it's hardly anything. So you can see how focal length vastly and changes the depth of field for a lens. So that was sort of a different, unique way of visualizing depth of field that I think might have been an interesting way, at least a new approach to discussing what do you call it, depth of field. There are no comments. This is bizarre. Did I have comments turned off or something? Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody's comments so far today. It's very weird because most of this show is me responding to people's comments. Did I not enable comments on this thing? No. Where are? That's so weird. Well, if I'm not going to get any comments, there's not really. I'm not going to be on for very long. That is so bizarre. Let's see here. I mean, I got 11 viewers online now. What is going on today? Let me just do a test. Oh, there is some partners. Hey, Gerald. Gerald, we only got one comment here. Gerald says, "Howdy, partner." There you go. It's working. At least I think it's working. Got one comment coming through. Oh, there's another one. "Hi from Uruguay." There we go. Now we're getting some comments. Now it's starting to feel like it's actually a live stream. It's actually becoming a thing. Okay. So that's an approach to depth of field that I was trying to go with and create. And I think somewhere along those lines is what I wanted to do with Filmmaker IQ, do like this Zen of depth of field. Now, the thing is, though, like I was trying to read up on nodal points and as far as depth of field as regards to nodal points, and I still really have a hard time understanding how that works. And I want to dig into it a lot deeper in order to kind of understand the depth of field as far as nodal points is concerned. So the thing is, like, I thought maybe this was an easier topic to do a video on, but in order for me to get to nodal points and stuff like that, gets a little trickier. And I don't know. My other thing I've been working on is I got this idea now I wanted to put pavers all around my studio and build a little paver path and kind of like clean up the dirt that's around the studio and make it full of pavers. And I've been kind of treating it as sort of my gym exercise. Instead of going to the gym, I instead get out there and basically dig for about an hour or so every morning or so. And oh my gosh, I think I'm crazy for wanting to do this because it is an insane amount of digging, and the dirt around my area is hard clay. So I actually had to buy myself a little mini jackhammer, like a tiny jackhammer, to like just be able to cut through it. Otherwise I'll be using a pickaxe and pounding away at a pickaxe, and I feel like jackhammer is probably just a quicker and easier way of doing it. But still, I have to like shovel the dirt, and that's a pain in the butt. So I'm just kind of resigned on the fact that it's going to take me who knows how long, weeks and weeks and weeks, in order to actually go ahead and get the all that dirt dug up around the studio. So that's going to be it's going to be an ongoing affair. Right now I am in the extreme heat portion of the year here where I live, and so I really try to relegate my time spent out there to like maybe an hour in the morning, just so I can get a little bit of exercise before it gets blazingly hot. And it does get blazingly hot pretty quickly. So this morning, it was beautiful up until about 7:30, and then 7:30 you could start feeling the heat creeping up on you. It just started getting really, really hot. Like at 7:30, it was feeling like it was like marine layer, very, very nice, very calm, very, very easy going. And then, oh my gosh, like 8 o'clock hit, and the sun burned through the marine layer, and it started getting hot. And so unfortunately, and then here's the other thing, and this is something that bothered me considerably today, was I thought I was saving money by buying. I needed to buy a new wheelbarrow because my old wheelbarrow is very, very tired and very, very, very destroyed. So Paul McBride says, "I think we were quiet at the beginning because we were learning DOF from your wonderful graph." Thank you very much. That is one way of looking at DOF. I think I might approach that. I might have to develop some more approaches to how to do that. Do kind of talk about DOF using those graphs and using that kind of way of intuiting it. Anyhow, back to my wheelbarrow story. So I bought a new wheelbarrow off OfferUp, and it was a good wheelbarrow. It was really, I thought it was really good though when I first checked it out. But the tires on it like started to like lose air really fast, and they would pump them up and they would lose air in like a day. Next day they'd be emptied. So I decided I want to get some new tires for the wheelbarrow, and that's like, oh, go to Harbor Freight and get yourself a 16-inch tire. No problem. They're expensive, but they're okay. You know, it's a expendable thing. Well, I get the tire home, and I'm like, I can pull this off in like 10 minutes, and I can do this. I can change these tires in like a minute and a half. And I pull it off, and I realize that these tires are the wrong axle diameter. The axle diameter of this wheelbarrow is 1 inch, and the axle diameter of the wheels I bought was 5/8. And nobody carries 1 inch axles. And if you wanted to buy 1 inch axle wheels, you'd have to go on Amazon and pay like $55 a wheel for it. And this is a dual wheel thing. And I'm like, I paid $75 for this wheelbarrow, which is in pretty good condition, but it takes freaking 1 inch axle. And I wanted a new one. I could have gone and bought a new one for like $149. And now I'm going to have to pay $100 just to get $110 to get new wheels for this thing. So I eventually bit the bullet and just went and bought a new wheelbarrow because I couldn't handle the fact that, like, in order to get this to work, I'd have to replace the axle, which, on top of that, I wouldn't entirely be sure if the axle replacement kit I bought would fit it. It just became a freaking nightmare. So I just gave up and I just bought myself a new wheelbarrow. So now I have another wheelbarrow. I have 3 wheelbarrows now, and they are multiplying in my yard. And one of these days I'll probably end up buying the axle replacement parts for the wheelbarrow. Maybe just buy the axle replacement part with a single wheel. Just go with a single wheel. And that's probably what I'll do. But not now, because I already have a wheelbarrow now. I have one dual wheelbarrow and I have one single wheelbarrow, which I need a new wheel for that barrow. So anyhow, that's my wheelbarrow. That's my wheelbarrow story. My long, boring wheelbarrow story. Anyhow, it is 3:17. Not a lot of comments today. You guys are all real quiet here. I know we're learning about the DOF graph of mine there. But I mean, it's kind of a new approach to DOF. But like, I was getting back into it. I'll give you some back in the history when I was earlier with the DSLR revolution, right? When the DSLR revolution happened, a lot of filmmakers were coming at it that were video folks, and they didn't really understand the way photography works with like depth of field, myself included. So the whole lens equivalency thing was new, and it was like confusing, and there was some content that was out there. It was actually was it Peter Northrup and Chelsea Northrup that kind of started talking about how lens equivalency works, and I kind of started following that. And by the time it was time for me to make a video about it, I realized it was a very contentious topic. And then finally, it clicked on me, and I think the way we describe depth of field is pretty much acceptable online, like as far as like everybody that knows what they're talking about understands it. There's no confusion really. The discussion is sort of mute. However, I occasionally go on Reddit and oh my gosh, Reddit still doesn't really understand half of it. But then again, I see on Reddit there's people that are really, really new, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's like I was once in your shoes, guys, in the Reddit. I'm no longer. Love is the Battlefield says, do your students express a vision on how they plan to use these studies in the future? That's a good question. It's something that I've kind of like tackled with or dealt with. Like, because like, what do you, I mean, I think the way I approach the videography, digital media in terms of teaching it is to try to look at the future and like what kind of jobs are these students going to be finding themselves? What kind of job market are they going to be finding themselves in, and what potential jobs they could get? So a lot of jobs that I think are going to be demanding for the video media field are going to be something, the term that I've been hearing a lot lately is comms, is communications. So I think people that are involved with public information officer, I mean, I know like hospitals, corporations, cities, municipal entities have comms people that are engaged in spreading information about about whatever the project there is. You know, so I've been doing this week. I had the pleasure of doing some work with Pleasanton, and we flew out there and we're doing it with their comms people, and you know, they're putting together some videos that I need to work on this week, where we're explaining to people what their water district is involved with, right? So that kind of position requires you to understand how digital media works and how to make digital media and how to shoot. So I think the world, I think that kind of job position is actually probably is going to be one of the more abundant jobs that are going to be out there. Of course, you can always freelance, but if you're looking for an in-house like videographer style job, then communications, and whether that's and it doesn't have to be necessarily just in municipal work or in like large government organizations or semi-government organizations or something like that. But I think those are the kind of jobs that the students that are learning these skills in cinematography are going to be applying toward. I don't think necessarily they're going to be jumping into doing like multi-million-dollar movies, although, you know, that's always the dream. So you can always apply what it is you do to making movies, and to making any kind of offset of movies, like be that like music videos or, you know, YouTube videos and stuff like that. So there is that realm, I think, is the most like likely that students will go into after they go through the programs. Hi from Pakistan, says Zubair Nazir. It's going to take a second for it to come up on my thing. There he is. Hi from Pakistan. Hello, Pakistan. Getting international viewership today from all 11 folks online here. So, yeah. Again, I think that's the reality, right? I think that majority of people that are going to be working in video and filmmaking are not going to be the ones working on big giant movies. They can be working on smaller projects that are not narrative forms. There are like commercial, industrial. In the old days we'd call them industrials, but now you can call them industrial socials. You know, stuff that it's basically information, getting information out there to the public. You know, whether that's live streaming or podcasting or, you know, making little movies, making clips, making shorts, making all that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's probably like, if I'm gearing my stuff toward, like that's kind of what I'm kind of aiming toward. Although I really do wish, you know, and I've been kind of wishing this for a while. I really wish I could be making stuff that's a little more like narrative driven. Like I would love to make some narrative driven material that's not purely just like informational, you know, edutainment, if you will. But it is what it is, and I've got to struggle through. I've got to keep working at it and keep developing things, and it's got to, in the words of Britney Spears, I've got to work it, bitch, and that is the way it is to be. Well, we've got 16 viewers now. A whole mess of people started coming in. So, what do you guys want to ask about? What do you want to talk about? Do you have any burning questions you want to talk about filmmaking, or you want to talk about wheelbarrows? You want to talk about how to lay paver stones? Because I've become an expert on that, apparently, by watching a bunch of YouTube videos on the topic, even though I probably don't know what I'm doing. You know, I'm going to get like yards of like compact the concrete, and I'm going to start bashing them into my path. I don't know. Here's a good one question I've heard, and I've actually I've had heard of this. Have you heard of micro dramas? Supposedly the next big thing on social media. I have heard of them, and I had considered actually making one for a while. The problem, I mean, not the problem. The problem is I don't have time to contribute to making micro dramas, but they're an interesting approach. You're basically telling stories essentially 3 minutes at a time. So your idea is you want to make a short that is essentially has a hook by the end of the third minute, and then you pay essentially like 99 cents to get the next minute, or whatever it is, 5 cents to get the next minute, and you kind of sell people on these essentially dramas that are like episodic dramas that are like the cliffhanger, like the serials of the old days, only they're delivered in 3-minute segments through social media, and a lot of them are actually shot in vertical mode. So that's another thing another thing that was unique to my experience this week was I did do a whole project in vertical mode. So that is something that that was something new that I've never experienced. It is a very interesting approach to do shooting things vertically. I think, do I like it? Yes, in some ways. I like it in terms of like what you can do with it in terms of a social media platform. Shooting vertically offers just a little bit more of a. I mean, the cool thing about shooting vertical is like when you can frame a person much better in vertical than you can in horizontal. Like in horizontal, you're cutting off. But if you're doing like a standing shot, a vertical shot gets you. So I'm so used to when I'm framing an individual for, like, let's say I'm doing this live stream right now, I'm framing for mid chest, right? So, but if I'm framing in a vertical mode, I would be framing to like belt and below. I'd be almost going to like the upper thigh if I was framing a shot. So it's very, that's what's uniquely interesting about it. Howdy from Kaduna, Nigeria. Welcome. Rick Mole says, any recommendations, books for the newbie wanting to make movies with children? Children, huh? I never thought about children. Like, how young are the children? The books I'm working with, I would definitely recommend is this book right here. The Visual Story is a book I'm using for my cinematography class, creating visual structure for film, TV, and digital media. But this is not necessarily a children's book. This is more of an advanced book. I don't know about children. Like, I honestly don't know what to say on that. Other than, I think with children, it's not so much about books as in just like going out and experimenting, and maybe taking what you can do is take a scene from their favorite movie and recreate it, and that'd be kind of fun. And like try to figure out like what it is about the movie, and try to remake it. I think that might be kind of a fun approach to teaching children how to make films. A lot of children love doing like Lego animation, and they even though Lego animation requires a tremendous amount of like patience that children might not have, but a little bit of Lego animation, maybe like 5 seconds is enough to make them like really get into it. I think the vertical production should use black bars, so it's more like an 8x10 portrait framing. Yeah, so a lot of vertical is not necessarily 9x16. Like a lot of social media. I know Instagram oftentimes 1x1 is actually one of the formats that they use on Instagram. 2:3 is actually, or 3:2 is another format that is very common on Instagram. Let's see. Let me take a look at Instagram aspect ratios, but I believe there are quite a Instagram aspect ratios. So they do have a 4x5, which is your 8x10. So the 4x5 aspect ratio on Instagram. Then there's 1x1, and then they have 1.91x1 for the widescreen for the horizontal. But yeah, so that's the thing with vertical mode, right? There's no real set. I mean, vertical mode is to be consumed on phones, so there really isn't. And every phone has a different aspect ratio. There really isn't a particular aspect ratio that fits all phones or is necessary for all phones. So vertical is sort of a wild west as far as like what kind of aspect ratio you want to go with, if you terms in terms of vertical, that is. Zubair Nui says, Zubair Nazir says, I'm going to shoot my first short film in a few days. Need to know what and how to communicate with my DOP. Well, geez, if it's your first film. So, I mean, first thing you should sit down with your DOP and say, hey, what's the look I'm going for? You know, like, so, I mean, realistically, between all of, I mean, I don't know if you have a production designer, but if you are the production designer, you should be sitting down with your DOP and saying, okay, so here's what I want to, here's the feel that I want to go for this particular scene, this particular shot here. I want this to feel this way. I want to have these kind of colors, and I want to have this kind of, like, I want it to be, you know, framed tightly or framed loosely, whatever it is you want to approach. And that's the kind of conversations you need to have with the DOP, is to say, what is the purpose of the scene that we're trying to do? What can we do with visually to make it happen visually, right? It's a long conversation, you know. It's an individual conversation. Every single scene, every single shot, everything you frame is going to have that conversation as far as like what it is you want to accomplish there. So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it in a few days, you better get on the phone or go get lunch and figure it out, because it's happening real soon. And then know as far as like what kind of, and they need to be doing like location scouting, like what kind of lighting we're going to deal with. Are we going to bring in lights? Are we going to prepare for a certain kind of lights? Are we going to shape already existing lighting that's there? You know, there's a lot of things to figure out. And if you haven't had any communication yet, you gotta do it. Gotta get out there and do it. Any other questions or comments or crazy thoughts about what we can be talking about? I don't know. I'm sort of running out of ideas here. Talked about the visual story. I don't know. Talked about my wheelbarrow situation. Talked about I went to Pleasanton. Did some drone work on the ridge, which was really cool, overlooking the city. Flew to San Francisco. Boy, I had never. You know, if you ever fly into San Diego, you need to be sitting on, and if you're a window seat guy, you need to be sitting on the right side of the plane. Is that the starboard side? I think you need to sit on the starboard side, because the view as you land in San Diego from the right side of the plane is something else. It is the most amazing view. It is absolutely amazing. Here's a good question. Dirk Schneider says, can you discuss the role of AI as a tool in filmmaking? Do you know any program to use to storyboard your screenplays? I don't know. That's never thought about that. I don't know. I think AI for filmmaking. So AI is a tool for filmmaking. However, there are some very good legitimate uses for AI in filmmaking that are not on the creative side, that are on like the bureaucratic side. Like if you need to fill out paperwork, man, AI is going to be a godsend. If you need to create, perhaps AI can be useful in terms of creating call sheets and stuff like that. That might be useful. Again, you really got it, but you got to like double check AI's work, because just today I was trying to have AI come up with a summary of a chapter, and it kept hallucinating. Like it constantly hallucinates all the time. So I would probably trust AI more for doing some of the work as far as like the bureaucratic, non-creative stuff. As far as the creative stuff, I don't think storyboards. I don't think AI is very good at creating storyboards. And I mean, because I think the problem with AI is like it oftentimes has a mind of its own and does what it wants to do, and it's not. I think if you want to storyboard something, you really want to have that creative control and do it the way you think of it. You might be use AI to like sort of like, you know, maybe create aspects for your storyboard, like, you know, draw me a background of a, you know, of a convenience store, give me a picture of a convenience store, and you can kind of use it to kind of create some storyboard stuff. But I think maybe also I would probably like advise against going too hardcore into storyboards as a novice. If you're new to filmmaking, I'm going to probably get in trouble for saying this, but I think if you're new to filmmaking, I think you should probably learn to shoot rather than storyboard. Like, and especially don't spend too much time on storyboards. Should be as simple as literally as simple as stick figures. I think there's more value in stick figures than there are in fully realized AI generated storyboards, because the fact is you're never going to be able to shoot those storyboards the way you want them. If you are new, you're not going to be able to. You can hire an artist to create this amazing shot sequence, but you can't shoot it because you don't have the experience and the money to pull it off. So there's no point in having a storyboard that is exceptionally high detail when you should just be like, here's my idea. I want to have a close up. I want to go a medium shot. I want the car going this direction. I want this, and you can kind of lay it down as a way to organize your ideas, and then shoot it, and then see how that looks, and then retool it. See, I think people kind of think of storyboards as a storyboard should be used as a tool to understand to understand how you want to present things visually. But storyboards in themselves are not themselves like a they're not themselves like a substitute or a means to an end. Basically, is what I'm saying. You can't draw? Well, that's okay. Thank you for the super chat too. I mean, you can't draw. That's fine. I said it's like stick figures are all that matter, because we're not worried. You're not with storyboards. You're not interested. You're not really worried about like quality art. You're just worried about. You're just trying to figure out what it is. How is this sequence going to play out, right? So you're trying to think. Okay, I want a close up. I want a medium shot, and I want a close up. I want it and then you can kind of visually see okay. So, guy, close up of medium shot of a guy. Maybe a close up on his eyes. So you draw a little frame and you put little circles and little eyes. Right? It could be a cartoon, and then you go draw a close up on, let's say he's got a gun. So it just got this thing focusing on my hand again. So he's got a gun. So he's reaching down. So you do another shot where you draw a little gun. Okay, and then you can kind of see the storyboard now. Okay, so this. Okay, and then you shoot it. Now, do you necessarily need it to look like a face? Do you need to look like a gun? Do you need to look like an actual prop? No, because all you're doing is trying to organize your thoughts as far as the way you want to look. There's a funny thing is the storyboards for the famous storyboards for Alfred Hitchcock. This is kind of an interesting bit of history. I'm going to look it up for you. The Alfred Hitchcock North by Northwest storyboard, right? So Alfred Hitchcock sort of got famous, or it's kind of a famous myth that he would storyboard his scenes before he shot them. And the funny thing about that is that's a myth. He didn't actually storyboard everything he shot. In fact, the images of a North by Northwest storyboard, here's the image here. I love these comparison shots. Are a lot of them. Here, let me put this on the full screen here. So here's the storyboard. Okay. What people don't realize is a lot of the storyboards that were created for North by Northwest were actually created after the fact. So they shot the sequence and then they created the storyboards after the fact to sell the movie, is part of the marketing of it. Okay? And that's the interesting thing. So he didn't necessarily come up with all the different shots that he didn't actually he didn't storyboard it first. But the myth that he was such a perfectionist that he would storyboard everything, that came about, and then they played into it by storyboarding it after it was shot, so that people so that they could sell the movie. Now, is that everything that was every sequence is in it? No, not necessarily, but it's always case by case, right? Everything is a case by case. How do I source talent in my commercial video shoots? Have you ever had someone flake out? When you're at a commercial video shoot, generally I've lucked out and I haven't actually had someone flake out that's like a professional actor or anything like that. So luckily I've never had that situation happen to me. But have people had flake out? Of course they have. The fact is though, like you can't, if it's hard to say. Like I've heard tell that people, like for like a fashion shoot or for like modeling stuff, people will often hire multiple models, and if one flakes out, they flake out, and they've still got like 2 or 3 others, so that's a possibility. However, like when somebody is like a talent for a commercial shoot where it's like they're a talking head or they're their explainer video, then I can't see how that's viable to get like multiple people to do it. You just have to make sure that they're there, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, I unfortunately have not. I'll be honest, like I really want to work with some actors again. I really want to work with actors. Like I've done a lot of stuff with people that are not actors. I can pull stuff from non-actors, but I would love to work with actors again, because I would love to be able to just say like, hey, let's hit that word a little harder, and I want you, or give me a different inflection on that, give me a different line read, and to get different line reads. And whereas working with non-actors, is essentially, can you get them to say the line correctly? And if you can get them to say the line correctly, yay, you can move on. Whereas working with actors is, can you get them to say the line well? Can you make it like what felt really good? You can have shades of under meaning. You can have fun with it. And yeah, working with non-actors is just a matter of, can you just say the line and not make it sound like, I don't know. I'm not going to say anymore. But yeah, that's that. I would love the day where I can work with actors again. I don't know, I'm getting there. I keep saying that, but it is what it is. Any other questions or comments that come to your mind? I'm here. I'm here to hang out, chat for a little bit before I take off. Anybody? Yeah, and I've had just experiences with people with shooting non-actors, and I did this one thing for a city, and it's the weirdest thing. It was a teleprompter thing. So teleprompter, you think, oh, teleprompter is easy, right? And teleprompter takes also another, if you can read like a book to children and do that, children's voice, then you might be able to do. But not everybody has that ability to like pick a page out of a book. Let's say I'm just going to read this page. Right. The various aspects of visual space discussed in this chapter can be related to the principle of contrast and affinity. Remember, contrast and affinity can occur within the shot, from shot to shot, and from sequence to sequence. Now, if you can do that, if you can perform a script vocally, then reading a teleprompter is not too bad for most people. And then you kind of train yourself to become more, train your eyes not to kind of go back and forth, although that's hard to do. But a lot of people cannot read like aloud. And I had this one guy who was a politician, and he was a very nice guy, very people, when you talk to him, he was very like animated. He's like, hi, how you doing? Oh, hi, I'm very good. We're gonna have a great time at this city. We've been doing a lot of great things for the community, and he's very personable. But man, when you put him on a teleprompter, when you put him on camera, it's impossible. He becomes impossible, and he becomes so like unbelievably monotonous and dry. and it's like a switch when he gets off of teleprompter, and then there's no way that they can memorize these lines because there's just too many lines. You have to prompt her, but it's just like anyhow. Do you think that actors would be offended if you show them exactly how to say a line? It depends. It depends on the actor, and it depends on what they feel about the character, and depends on if the way you want them to read the line is not the way that they think the line ought to be read. Because if they're hard nosed in that, then they would get offended. Like, you know. But I try to avoid. Well, with a person who doesn't have any acting experience, I will often do a line read. Like, I will say, no, say it like this: contrast and affinity. Can you just get that? Or if frame lines are on the picture, keep it closed. The best way to create open space is to permanently remove the frame lines. So, you know, like, can you say, give me a little up, create the frame lines, you know? But I really try to avoid giving a line read to a non-actor. Avoid giving line reads to anybody primarily because you don't know what it's like to be in front of the camera. People that are behind the camera, like, you know, how hard is it just to say, viewers feel they're inside the scene instead of outside the window, watching the images through a closed stationary frame. Viewers feel like they're inside the scene instead of outside the window, watching images through a closed stationary frame. Like, I can read it over and over again, but then if I'm in front of the camera and I have to like memorize it and think about it, viewers can identify as the frame. See, I can't remember the line. Viewers feel they're inside the scene because instead of outside a window watching the images through a closed stationary frame. Viewers feel that they're inside the scene instead of outside a window watching images through a closed stationary frame. Viewers feel they're inside the scene instead of outside a window viewing the scene through a closed stationary frame. Now, I didn't quite get the lines right. I mean, I was kind of getting warmer, but you see how, like, trying to memorize it and trying to say it like internally is really, really difficult. If you have the script in front of you and you're reading it, it's really easy, and I can just give you these line reads, and so when you're behind the camera with the script in your hand and you're just reading it, it's a totally different beast. So I oftentimes have a lot of like empathy for people that are in front of the camera, for non-actors that are in front of the camera trying to like memorize lines and all that stuff. I feel for them. I get it. I don't like judge you, but like I just sometimes want people to have like a little on-camera charisma, you know. I don't know. There are some. I've recorded some people that are great on camera, that can just like know how to read, and they know how to like deliver things well on camera. And then I've had people that turn into statues, stone. They get that Medusa complex. They're just frozen. So that my impression would be like, "Hi, it's great to be here." So I'm going to tell you the story of visual language. Let's see, pick another page here. Part 2. Here we go. There are some secondary concepts that make space more visually useful. This includes aspect ratio, defining the physical properties of the frame, surface divisions dividing the frame, and closed and open space, creating space outside the frame. That's what I've had to deal with sometimes. And it's like, what do you do? This person has to be on camera. They're the, whatever. They're the person that the video's about. And they're just so hard to do. I don't know. I like to go back and do some like working with actors, the scene. They can play off of each other. I don't know. I miss it. I'm tired. Maybe that's what it is. Oops. Teleprompter can cause the karaoke syndrome. Some people will lock on to the screen for every syllable and not treat it as a handy reference. Yeah, the trick. There's a couple tricks with teleprompters that I've discovered, and I mean, part of it is like, you know what? What are you gonna do? You know, like teleprompt. You know, like I want them to like look, you know, and they're gonna be reading the words on that, and that's okay. But and if their eyes are moving because they're reading the words, I guess, you know, it's just tricky. You know, it's like we can either get through this with your eyes moving like you're on teleprompter, or we can not get through this, and it's just not going to come out at all. You know. Yeah, I mean, teleprompter is not necessarily a handy reference. Teleprompter is actually kind of a skill because, you know, teleprompter reading, you're not really referencing it, you're reading it. You are reading it syllable by syllable and word by word. That's the advantage of the teleprompter, is because you don't have to go off script. You can say, which is why everything I've done on Filmmaker IQ videos have always been teleprompter, because that's how you like really get the exact wording of the script that you want to get across. At least for my brain, I can't talk off the cuff as well without teleprompter. So I feel that extreme close-ups are paradoxical. For some reason, it seems to make acting look great, but common sense would suggest that if you use a bad actor, a close-up would enhance bad acting. I'm not quite following what you mean by that. I think a close-up of a bad actor. Let's say a close-up of somebody who's doing something they shouldn't be doing, as far as an acting is concerned, a close-up of it would definitely like exemplify or like exaggerate it, right? So if like a person is in a close-up, and my girlfriend gives me crap for this, but like if they say, "I brought you flowers," and then they look around because they're looking at something else, like a close-up will catch all that, right? So that's the thing. Like, even though like I'm not trying to say like the flowers were not, I'm like, oh, the flowers. No, I'm just looking at something else in the frame. So a close-up will catch everything like that, right? But I think for close-ups allow us to get into really close detail, right? So like you'll in real life, you'll never be, if you want to get in someone's face and feel their emotion, you'll never, I mean, the camera is literally inches from my face. You'll never really be in that situation in my face. So a close-up allows those kind of motions, right? And what am I saying? So a close-up allows you to kind of hyper focus in on a little tiny bit of acting. So if I'm super in here, I'm not worried necessarily what my feet are doing or what my hands are doing. I can allow all my energies to be put into just my eyes. Whereas further back, you know, I have to act more with my body. I don't know what I'm going with that. Something like that. Love is Battlefield. First, I can't read a teleprompter, but if I go through the script a bunch of times and just do it live, hitting bullet points, it's okay. Yeah, I think most people like bullet points or like certain highlighted lines are the way to go. The thing is though, like actual, I mean, I would never use a teleprompter for doing like acting work. Although like famously, what's his name? Marlon Brando was famously used to always use cue cards. And if you watch like Saturday Night Live, you see what acting looks like when it's done off cue card. But like in a movie, I would never ever want like cue cards or that kind of stuff, or teleprompters. So teleprompters are meant for explainer videos or newscaster, right? So like if I'm looking at the lens, I want to have my script so I can read it to you in that kind of format. I would never purposely try to put the script off to the side and read it like that. I mean, you could, I guess, but yeah, that's, teleprompter is really meant for speaking directly into the lens and talking and saying. Eric Roberts uses cue cards. I'm sure he does. But like, yeah, I mean, just watch Saturday Night Live and you see how acting looks like when it's done on cue cards. It's just it looks wooden, and you don't like the eye lines are all kind of weird, and then people there's not there's it's just and then people are gazes are affixed to one thing rather than like being more naturalistic. So, anyhow, oh wait, I'll get some of my drink. I gotta get going pretty soon. I'll be on for about an hour or so. Mm. Anything else you guys are burning curiosity about? Burning questions about frame rate? Are we done talking about frame rate yet? I think we are. I think the world has moved on from frame rate. I no longer get all those comments about frame rate. The algorithm has moved on. I don't know. Maybe if I made a frame rate video, I would literally get like a whole bunch of comments. You enjoy my series? Do I have any other planned? I wanted to go back and do some more. I think I probably will get me some more studios one. I gotta redo how I shoot those studios because I have a different studio space. But I definitely do want to do studios. I love me some 24 FPS. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, I can kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of like snobby in that, like, if I get drone footage that's not in 24 FPS, I get a little bit like snooty about it because it's like you want your drone footage to look epic. If you're shooting in 60, it looks kind of like cheap. It looks kind of video-esque. I want like real freaking cinematic drone shots. Um, there we go. I'm sold on 24 FPS. For me, the area of interest is shutter speed and how that changes the feel. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's actually kind of crazy how if you make the shutter speed 360, it can almost feel like high frame rate. Like it has that silky smoothness of high frame rate, even though it is only 24 frames a second. I mean, there is a little bit of still. I mean, the cadence of 24 still creeps in, but it's still crazy how how 24 is how shutter speed plays into that. Gerald says, since I figured out I can manually set my monitor to 48 and 72, I have more appreciation for 24. There you go. Although personally, to me, I'll be honest with you, like I prefer the look of 60. My monitor to sit to 60. I've never liked the way 24 looks on 48 refresh rate. Maybe it's just the monitors I've had, because there's a lot more to monitor how frame rates appear on a monitor than just the actual refresh rate. But ironically, I mean, I've done this experiment for me visually. Like a high refresh rate, like 144 hertz monitor, will actually make the 24 looks more jittery than a 60, because the way the way the screen refreshes is done very quickly. But yeah, no, I just don't like the way. I mean, maybe because I also grew up watching it on 60 hertz screens, where I never watched anything but 60 hertz screens. So to me, it always looks better on the native 60. Let's see. I'm just curious. See what. Let's go back here. Trying to explain what I mean. I often get the sense that you get more from a performance by moving the camera closer. Maybe it's just the camera captures stuff that we perceive as subtle. I think that's probably it, right? Like because you can do really micro acting, and it's like just an eye shift can like just the movement of an eye is enough to like create that something. Again, if you go back to Kuleshov technique, right? The Kuleshov effect, where you show like a person's face and he's just like staring into the lens, and then you mix it with a shot of like some soup, and then you put those two shots together and you get the impression that the person's hungry for soup. So a lot of film acting, you know, if you get rid of some context clues, like if I'm just doing like a close up on the eye, and I do that, I can edit that with any other shot, and I can create meaning from that because the context clues are gone. Like I can just, and you're so focused on like the little tiny detail. So I think that might be just how you do it, even if it's half-ass acting. Yeah. So the Kuleshov effect is no acting. It's like he just literally took a dude who's just looking at the frame and not doing anything, and then they mixed it with editing. Oftentimes they say that the performance is crafted in the edit bay. That's a very common phrase, where you can take bad acting and make it good by basically controlling the edit, partly with like cutaways, and you can control like tempo and movement and stuff like that. So there's a lot I can do. And that's how I get away with the acting that I get from some of these non-actors is because I can craft their performance through editing and through like B-roll cutting and all that stuff. So yeah, that is the story. All right, what time is it? It's 4 o'clock or so. Hey, you can't make bad good, only better. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. You'll never know what the original looks like. You know, I think a lot of people might think that the original was very bad, and you can make it decent or good. I've had to like work with that a lot. You can make people sound like they actually know what they're talking about by editing, with editing. Alrighty, well, I think it's about time for me to go take a shower and head out and have dinner with my girlfriend, go hang out in the pool and relax. Hey, Matthias, you're here. Matthias is always talking about 30 frames. I see someone say that 30 FPS should be used instead of 24. He said 30 FPS is better and doesn't have any soap opera effect. For me, it's already enough for films to be already feel off. I hate that. I really hate that claim that 30 FPS doesn't have soap opera effect. It does. It does. Of course it does. It looks, and then they say, well, it's only 6 frames more, but I'm like, no, it's 25%. It's huge. They call it just enough different, just JDP, just enough difference. I don't know. JNP, just nominal difference. I don't know. In psychophysics, there is something where it's like noticeably different enough. And I think it's JNP, where like you know, at those low frame rates, just 2 frames is enough to be different enough. Yeah, I've had enough. I mean, I shoot a lot of 30 FPS. I shoot a lot of 30 FPS. All my live stuff is 30 FPS. I think this stream is 30 FPS. So, like, yeah, I'm doing 30 FPS here. I think that's my camera set to. So yeah, no, I know the difference between 24 and 30. It's obvious. It's huge. It's huge. Anyhow. All right. Well, I better get going. I need to shave a little bit here. But oh, thanks for another super chat there, Dirk Schneider. I'll be back here next week probably. Maybe earlier. More comments are coming up here. 48, 60 FPS looks and feels a lot more like 24. Oh, call right back. And as a side bonus, 24 helps brighten the image if those situations low lighting. Absolutely. It's very helpful. Alrighty, guys. I am about to take off. And yeah, we'll catch you. Hopefully, we'll do some more streaming here. Catch you next week. And Filmmaker IQ will do some actual videos too. So, all right, we will see you guys later. And that's a fade to black. Bye.